The coffee had gone cold before I realized why something felt wrong. From the kitchen window, I could see the garage door yawning open, the gray light spilling across the concrete. In 42 years, Silas never left that door open, not once. Even in the last months of his illness, when his hands shook too much to grip a wrench, he still walked out there every morning just to close it himself. I set the cup down and crossed the yard in my slippers. The grass was damp, the morning air heavy enough to sting my lungs. When I reached the threshold, my breath caught. The space was hollow, stripped of the sound that used to fill it, the hum of a radio, the soft rhythm of Silas humming under his breath. The 1967 Shelby sat there every day for 25 years. Now there was only the dark imprint of its tires on the concrete and the sharp smell of motor oil that refused to fade. His workbench remained untouched. The red toolbox still on the counter, the open notebook where he logged every bolt and polish. My hands trembled as I traced the edge of the page, his handwriting steady and patient as always. He used to say the car wasn't just metal. It was proof that something built with care could outlast grief. I stood there for a long time, long enough for the cold to seep through my robe before the sound of an engine pulled me back. Graham's car turned into the drive, the sleek black one he couldn't afford without the lease. Marina was with him, her sunglasses already on, though the sun hadn't broken through the clouds. Mom, Graham called, stepping out. "I need to talk to you about something." I didn't ask. "Where's the car?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I sold it. Marina needs to be in Milan next week." It was just sitting there. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. I turned, walked back into the kitchen, and poured the cold coffee down the sink. The garage door stayed open behind me, waiting for what would come next. She spoke like nothing had happened, like the car wasn't gone, like my silence was just awkwardness instead of heartbreak. "We'll send photos," Marina said, stepping up beside Graham. "Milan's beautiful this time of year." Her nails were red, not chipped, not smudged, perfect. The kind of red that looked expensive, like it had a name you couldn't pronounce. She adjusted her sunglasses, though the clouds hadn't lifted, and smiled with the kind of calm that felt rehearsed. Graham didn't say anything else, just shifted his weight and kept his hands buried in his coat pockets. He used to fidget when he was nervous, tug at his sleeves, or clear his throat too often. Now he just stood there, like a man already ashamed. Marina hadn't touched a wrench in her life. I doubt she even knew where the garage light switch was. I didn't invite them in. I didn't offer coffee. I just let the screen door close behind me and walked back out to the garage. The workbench looked exactly as it had the day Silas last touched it. His tools were still lined up with black marker outlines behind them, every wrench and ratchet in its place. The red toolbox sat closed in the center like a resting heart. His old thermos was still on the shelf empty, but I hadn't thrown it away. I couldn't. There had been nights when I'd wake up at midnight and look out the back window only to find the garage light still glowing. He'd be under the Shelby legs, stretched out music low on the radio, sometimes humming, sometimes just quiet. That car wasn't a hobby, it was a promise, one he kept for 25 years. Marina had walked past this garage a dozen times and never once looked inside, not even when we first invited her over. And now she stood there with that smile brushing away history like dust on a shelf. I stayed in the garage after they left, standing in the center of the empty space, staring at the stain where the car had been. The silence felt different, now emptier, like it was missing a pulse. The phone rang at 7 a.m. I'd been awake for hours, but I let it ring twice before picking up. The number was local, unfamiliar. Mrs. Harwood. A man's voice asked, a little gravel in the way he spoke. "This is Tom Graves. I run Graves Auto off Maple Road. I believe I have your husband's car." I sat up straighter. "The Shelby, yes, ma'am." Your son brought it in yesterday. Said he was selling it, but he paused. Your husband left something for you. Inside the car. He told me what to do if this day ever came. I didn't know what to say. Could you come down this morning? I think it's best you see it yourself. Tom Graves. I remembered the name faintly. He was younger back then, owned a little corner lot, barely more than a shack with a lift. Silas had mentioned him once or twice. I think they met at a car show. I dressed quickly, pulled on jeans and an old sweater, and drove through the morning fog. The dealership was nothing like I remembered. Clean, sleek rows of vintage cars lined up behind a chain-link fence. Tom stood outside the front office, hands in his pockets. His hair had gone gray. His face looked like it had been through some years. I didn't want to take it, he said after shaking my hand. When Graham came in, he looked wrecked. Said his wife had a business thing in Milan that he needed to sell fast. And you paid him 12 grand. I figured he didn't know what he had. But your husband, he made me promise something years ago. Tom's voice grew quieter. Said if anything ever happened to him and that car ended up here, I had to call you. Said there was something in it, meant for your hands only. I followed him toward the service garage, heart thick in my chest. The bay doors were still closed, but I could feel the weight of what was waiting behind them. Tom led me through the service bay to where the Shelby sat under bright lights. The burgundy paint gleamed as if Silas had polished it yesterday. For a moment, all I could do was stand there, one hand over my mouth, afraid that if I breathed too hard, the car might vanish again. He opened the driver's side door and gestured for me to come closer. 2 years ago, your husband asked me to help him install something, Tom said quietly. A compartment behind the radio. Said it wasn't for the car's sake, it was for you. He pressed along the edge of the dash until a soft click sounded. A narrow panel lifted free. Inside was a manila folder, a sealed envelope with my name, written in Silas's careful handwriting, and a small wooden box. My hands shook as I reached for them. The envelope came first. The paper was thick, the ink pressed deep. The letter inside was dated 2 months before he died. Marina isn't who she says she is. Her real name is Talia Benton. He'd written every word like he knew time was running out. He had been tracking her bank statements' public records, 2 previous marriages that ended with estates sold off and accounts drained. One of the husband's mothers had died in a memory facility that was paid for only until the money was gone. Then the staff found her alone in an empty room. She'll do the same to Graham, the letter read. She's already asking questions about our house. About your health? I don't have proof yet, but I'm close. If something happens to me, use what I've found. Protect him from her. The key in the box will lead you to the Rest First Federal Bank Box 231. The wooden box was small enough to fit in my palm, the key inside smooth and cold. Tom stayed silent, watching me close the compartment and tuck everything under my arm. I thanked him, though my voice came out thin. By the time I left the garage, the sun had risen. I drove straight to the bank. The clerk at First Federal led me to the vault in silence. The key fit cleanly into box 231. My hands were steady, but my pulse wasn't. Inside, there were no heirlooms, no rings or medals or journals, just a single thick envelope and a laminated page on top stock certificates from a company called Bright Layer Technologies. Silas had written a note across the bottom. Bought in 1998. Just a hunch. Might be worth something one day. I took the envelope to the investment desk, waited while the associate typed in the company's details. She stopped when the number appeared on her screen. Looked at me, eyes wide. Ma'am, as of this morning, these shares are valued at roughly $380,000. I thanked her, took the envelope back and sat in the car with the door-open folder in my lap. Sun on my face. Inside the manila folder were names, dates, photos clipped together in small stacks. Marriage licenses, police reports, emails. 2 typed letters from people I didn't know. Victims. I called them. One was in Arizona, the other Florida. Stanley answered first. His voice cracked when I said her name. She told me my mother was slipping, forgetting names, leaving the stove on. Found a memory care facility, said it was the safest place. I believed her. He paused. 2 weeks after we moved, Mom Vanessa took everything. $200,000. Gone. She'd added herself to the account. Legally. George in Tampa told a different story, but the ending was the same. She helped me sell my father's business. Said we'd start over. New city, new life. She wired the money out of the country and left a note on the counter. I haven't seen her since. They both said the same thing, almost word for word. Document everything. She starts small, then she destroys. I closed the folder and stared at the dash. It was late afternoon now, and the light had changed. Marina wasn't just a mistake. She was deliberate. She was calculated. And she was sitting at my son's side, smiling at my table. I invited them to dinner that Friday. Played it the way Silas would have, warm, simple, polite. Marina brought a bottle of wine I didn't open. Graham looked tired, though he tried not to show it. She, on the other hand, was effortless. Compliments poured out of her like water. The roast is perfect, Celeste. Honestly, I don't know how you do it, she said between bites. She ran her hand along the edge of the dining table, then looked up toward the ceiling beams. And this house, it's beautiful. The light, the space, the views must have been amazing, raising a family here. Graham nodded, faintly chewing without much interest. Marina reached for her glass, but she continued smiling at me gently. It's a lot for one person, isn't it? Ever thought about something smaller? Easier. I smiled. I suppose I've thought about it. She nodded, as if we were in agreement, not just making conversation. There are these new developments near the Riverwalk. Gorgeous units. No stairs, no yard to maintain. Would be perfect. I changed the subject. Asked Graham about work. He said things were fine. Quiet. Later, Marina excused herself. Bathroom downstairs. First door past the den, I said. She smiled, got up, and disappeared down the hall. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I excused myself quietly and walked upstairs. She was standing outside the office door. Oh, she said brightly when she saw me. I must have taken a wrong turn. Old houses confuse me. I nodded, let her pass, and walked her back downstairs. They left soon after Graham offering a tired hug. Marina waved from the passenger seat. That night, I pulled out the notebook I'd started after visiting the bank. April 22nd. Dinner, Marina. This house is beautiful, but a lot for one person. Bathroom break, Chakri, 15 minutes. Found her upstairs. Hallway near Silas's office. Said she was confused. I didn't add emotion, just the facts. Dates, times, words. Silas had started the investigation. I would finish it. The next step was waiting in my drawer. I waited until the weekend. I knew he'd be off work, and Marina had mentioned a yoga class she never missed on Saturdays. I called him in the morning. Graham, I found something in your father's things. I'd like you to see it. He hesitated, then said he'd come by around noon. When he arrived, he looked guarded, coat zipped up, shoulders tight. He didn't take off his shoes or ask for coffee. I led him to the kitchen table where I'd laid everything out. The letter from Silas, the folder, the notes, the copies of marriage certificates, police reports, photos of 2 weddings, same woman, different names. Graham stood over the papers but didn't sit. "What is this?" he asked. "Just look." He flipped through a few pages, eyes narrowing. "This is absurd," he said, voice rising. "Marina would never. This is conspiracy theory, nonsense. I'm not asking you to believe me," I said. "I'm asking you to call them." I pointed to the page with the 2 names and phone numbers in Silas's handwriting. Graham grabbed it, crumpled it in his hand, and walked out without another word. That night, just after midnight, the phone rang. His voice was wrecked. "Mom." I sat up. "Graham." I asked her questions, he said. Simple ones: where she grew up, her mother's name, the street she lived on as a kid. Every answer was different from what she told me before. Towns' names, even the college. It didn't match. Silence stretched between us. She got defensive, then cold. Said I was prying, that if I didn't trust her, she'd leave. More silence, then softer. "She's gone. Mom." She took money from our account, packed a bag, and left. Her phone's off. I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry." He was crying now. Quiet, broken. I didn't want to believe it. But Dad, he knew. He saw it all coming. We didn't say goodbye. The line just stayed quiet, both of us breathing. When it finally disconnected, I folded the papers back into the folder and reached for my coat. There was still one more call to make. By morning, I had Peter Coleman's number. Tom Graves had given it to me. Peter answered on the first ring. His voice was calm, efficient. "Mrs. Harwood, I was expecting your call. Your husband hired me last year. I promised him I'd help if this ever happened." He didn't need me to explain. Graham had already reached out to him after Marina vanished. "We've tracked her to JFK," Peter said. "She's using the alias Evelyn Marsh. Flight to Madrid, connection to Milan. I've already contacted the police. They'll need your son's statement to make the arrest legal." Within the hour, we were in Peter's car. The city still gray with dawn. Graham sat beside me, silent hands clasped tight in his lap. He hadn't slept. Neither had I. At the airport, Peter led us through a side entrance to the security gates where two plainclothes detectives were waiting. We stayed back near a pillar overlooking the line. Then I saw her. Hair pulled back neatly, heels clicking against the tile. She wore beige, elegant, simple, expensive, the kind of disguise that looked harmless. When the officers approached, she smiled as though they'd made a mistake. "Is there a problem?" They showed her the warrant. The smile faltered. She tried to run, dropping her purse and kicking off her shoes, but airport security caught her before she reached the gate. The detectives opened her bag right there on the floor. Bundles of cash, a fake passport, a folder with property records, my house, my land deed, even the insurance policy. Silas left. When she saw Graham, her expression changed. She spat toward him. "You think your mother won. You were always pathetic." He didn't respond. Neither did I. The officers handcuffed her, read her rights, and led her away. Her shouting echoed through the terminal, a voice unraveling into something small and hollow. Graham looked at me, tears standing in his eyes. I just turned toward the exit. We walked out together, past the noise into the quiet of morning. The days after the arrest moved slowly. Graham stayed at my house just until he could figure things out. That's what he said. But weeks passed, and I didn't ask him when he planned to leave. He took the guest room, the one with the view of the garden. Sometimes he helped with breakfast. Sometimes he stayed in bed. He was quieter now, lighter in a strange way, like grief had emptied something out of him, and the space hadn't filled in yet. One afternoon, I found him in the garage. The door was rolled up, and he was sitting on Silas's old stool, a notebook in his lap. He didn't say anything when I stepped in, so I just leaned against the frame and waited. "I found this behind the toolbox," he said finally, without looking up. "It's Dad's." I nodded. He opened it slowly, fingers brushing the edges of the pages like they were fragile. Then he stopped, eyes fixed on one entry. His voice broke as he read it aloud. "Taught Graham to change the oil today." He listened to every word. His hands are small but careful. He kept reading, his mouth moving, the words trembling. Then he pressed the journal to his chest and sobbed, shoulders shaking, body folding over as if the weight of it all had finally found him. I didn't go to him. just stayed where I was. Let him fall apart without being seen too closely. Later that night, after he'd gone upstairs, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table, logged into the account where Silas had stored the tech stock funds. I used $5,000 to quietly pay off the rest of Graham's credit card debt, the balance Marina had racked up under his name. I didn't tell him. The garage light stayed on late that evening. When I walked past it to lock up, I saw the journal still open on the workbench. I left it there right where Silas would have wanted it. The space didn't feel empty anymore, just waiting. Tom pulled into the driveway just after 10. The Shelby gleamed in the sunlight just like it always had. Burgundy paint, perfect chrome, polished to a soft shine. I stepped outside as he climbed out. Graham followed a few steps behind me, drying his hands on a dish towel. Tom smiled, holding the keys in his palm. "It was never mine," he said. "Silas built it for you." I looked at Graham. His face was quiet, unsure. I reached into my pocket and handed him the journal. "Let's start from the beginning," I said. He opened to the first page Silas had marked for him, checked the list oil coolant belts. His fingers were steadier now. Together we opened the hood. The engine looked just like it had the last time Silas touched it. Clean, precise, cared for. Graham leaned over, pulled the dipstick, wiped it, checked the level just like the journal said. I stood beside him, not giving directions, just there. The air in the garage smelled like motor oil again, like old leather and hand soap and long afternoons where time didn't matter. It smelled like Silas. We worked until the light shifted and the shadows stretched across the floor. Graham didn't speak much, but he didn't have to. Every bolt, every touch, every step he followed was a conversation between father and son, between the man he had become and the one who had loved him into being. When we finally lowered the hood, Graham exhaled and looked at me. "Do you want to try it?" I nodded. He opened the driver's side door for me, then walked around to the passenger seat. I slid behind the wheel. The leather was cool, familiar. I turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. Not loud, not showy, just steady. Sure. Graham smiled. Not wide, not all the way, but enough. We sat there for a moment in the sound of it, the smell of it, the presence of something that wasn't gone after all. Then I backed slowly out of the garage.